Back to Cruz and Trump and the political drama. Do you remember the pledges that all the candidates took at the very first Republican debate? Here it is.
Senator Cruz, yes or no, you will support Donald Trump if he's the nominee?
Yes, because I gave my word that I would. And what I have endeavored to do every day in the Senate is do what I said I would do.
Okay, that was last summer. Fast forward to this morning, the morning after the speech last night, Ted Cruz explaining again why he did not endorse Donald Trump.
I am not in the habit of supporting people who attack my wife and attack my father. And that pledge was not a blanket commitment that if you go and slander and attack Heidi, that I'm going to nonetheless come like a servile puppy dog and say thank you very much for maligning my wife and maligning my father. I will note, sir, that you might have a similar view if someone were attacking your wife.
All right, well, joining us now is the man who made the candidates take that pledge way back when. Bret Baier, special report host, with us this morning. Would I be right in saying that Ted Cruz is one of the most unpopular Republicans in the party as of this morning?
Here in Cleveland, that's probably the case, Stuart, and I think throughout the party there's a sense that he may have hurt himself long term. Listen, he's trying to stand up for principle. He's trying to say who stands up for the Constitution. But in the way that he did it, it is not sitting well from everybody I've talked to this morning. It was not Ronald Reagan 1976. Ronald Reagan at the end of that speech ended it by signaling this endorsement saying how important it was, Mr. President, to Gerald Ford. The place went crazy. If Ted Cruz in that speech last night came to the end and read the room and said our choices are few and we need to support Donald Trump and Mike Pence, or we need to support the Republican ticket, the place would have gone crazy. But he didn't do that. And then he extended that moment with the Texas delegation Q&A this morning. You know, I asked the first question in the first debate, August 6th. That was the hand-raising question. You remember that one?
Yep.
The one that you played is actually from Detroit in March, and we then asked again, if Donald Trump's the nominee, would you support him? And that's where you had, yes, that's my word.
Now, I want your opinion on John Kasich, if I may. A no-show, didn't show up at all on the convention floor. We understand that he turned down the vice presidential job, even though he'd been offered quite a lot of power. If he took it, he turned it down. Your thoughts on John Kasich this morning?
Well, John Kasich is making a different play. Even though this debate is in his hometown, he is not showing up. He's making the Jeb Bush decision, which on principle, they are deciding they're not supporting Donald Trump and staying away. Again, in contrast to Ted Cruz's decision to come and to accept the primetime address and to still do what he did, that's a different thing. Yet, I think Kasich will have, some issues in the party too, depending on how this goes. And it's also a little tough for the Trump people because they obviously need Ohio. And with John Kasich and his machine, that's important to get out the vote come November.
Now, we're suggesting that the Republican Party this morning is split. But tonight, Donald Trump wraps up the convention, and it's probably going to be the most watched political speech of all time. This is a moment to try to unify, perhaps around opposition to Hillary Clinton. What says Bret Baier?
Well, I would just say I wouldn't stipulate that the party is so fractured. I think, you look at the polls, it's about 82%. Mitt Romney was about 90% in support of the party. And so there's not that big of a gap. And every time they talk about the Supreme Court openings, every time they talk about regulations, every time they talk about things that just by being a Republican president, I think more and more people do get on board despite their misgivings. Now, you're right. The biggest thing, Donald Trump's speech tonight and how he handles it. If he can convince people sitting in their living room that he can be president, and they look at him and say, maybe, yes, he can be president. And that's his challenge.
Tens of millions of people, I think, will be watching. Maybe 30 million people tonight. That's just a wild guess on my part, Bret. I know you'll be one of them, and so will I.
No, I think you're right.
Maybe.
I hope they watch Fox.
They will, Bret. They will. Bret Baier, thanks very much for joining us, sir. We appreciate it. Thank you.